Welcome grade 12 to Kuier Rapport Matriekklas 2021. I am Mr. Damian Magerman and my focus is English First Additional Language, and today we are going to just focus on the basics basically for your paper 1, which is your language paper. Now I understand this is a crazy time to you. You are pressurized. You have pressure from home, stresses from home, but also from school. And as teachers, we understand what you are going through. But at the same time, we need to remember you need to be prepared and we need to prepare you. So comprehension is basically one of the skills that we tend to forget. And that's our focus for today, as well as the summary skills for paper 1. So our focus will be question 1 and question 2 in your paper. Now the word comprehension means to comprehend. And that means to understand. Now obviously for you to understand you need to be able to read. And that is what is important for your paper 1, any of your papers. When you prepare for the examination, you need to be able to read. And in that way you will interpret, understand, and you would be able to respond to the questions. Okay, so we will focus firstly on the comprehension and then on the summary skills. So you follow with me with my slides. Okay, like I said, read and we must interpret. So very important, firstly, when you see the comprehension in front of you, question 1, and this is after you have read your instructions. It's very important that you do that. You see how important reading is in the paper? And please don't have the mindset that you're going to read only for English. You're going to read only for Afrikaans. You need to read for all your question papers. Okay? You'll see that I have a holistic approach with regards to reading, and that is how important it is because we read a lot. But what is important here is when you leave school on a daily basis, your reading is limited to your cell phone, and we make use of shorthand text. And it creates the problem when we write and when we speak. So we believe when we want to refer to the word you make use of the letter U. Small things like that impacts on your reading and your response. Okay? So firstly, we understand we need to read and interpret the title itself in the comprehension. Very important. Okay? So you look at that title and ask yourself, what is the writer of this text trying to convey within the text? Okay, so I have included for you a title from one of the past papers, X, Y, or Z. Now automatically I can just think, these are letters from the alphabet. But the understanding from it is basically X, Y, or Z generation. And we will find this when we start reading the very first paragraph. But what is important, I look at it and I see X, Y, or Z. Now to you, when you prepare for the exam, when you get into the exam, whatever the title is going to be, you need to ask yourself the question, what is the writer trying to convey with this title? Pardon? That is the most important part. What is the writer trying to convey? Okay, we move on and we look at another one that says manners matter. Now, if I look at manners matter, grade 12, everyone and anyone has an opinion about manners. But now obviously it comes back to that idea of what is the writer trying to convey? What is he or she trying to say with manners matter? Okay, now you also formulate an opinion of yourself because you also have this idea of why manners would matter. And so would someone else. So would your parents or your guardians who educate you at home. But remember, the text would be based on total different things because it is a different writer. It is not your thoughts. Okay? We move on. Right, now, when I look at the comprehension, it's very important that the text must be read. And when I do so, I need to try to understand the text, every paragraph. So you skim and you scan as you go through the text to get an idea what the writer is trying to convey, especially in every paragraph. Because when questions are posed to you in the examination, they will tell you, refer to paragraph, refer to lines 18 to 24. Okay, so you must be able to understand the text, and in that way, you would be able to respond to the questions. That's what's important, okay? Gather information from the text. Now, this is very important here. Who wrote the text? So maybe in the text, it is included who wrote the text and why. Is it information given from Stats South Africa? Is it information from or a text based on an author, a writer, a poet? Right? For example, someone like Maya Angelou. What exactly is it about? And then who wrote it? But then I ask myself the question, why was it written? So if you ask yourself the question on the text based on X, Y, or Z generation, why was it written? Information. Because like I said, we all have opinions about it. And someone went and did research and they wrote that piece. So we understand why was it written. Information is given through. Okay? And then lastly, what is the main idea? What is the main message that the writer is trying to convey to us as the readers? That's the question. What is it that the writer wants us to see out of the whole thing? So if you ask yourself the question, X, Y, or Z, that's the title. So when I look at the text, and he's trying to convey about the different generations, when they were born, that's information given. How they lived, or how they live. Then automatically information is given, so I understand the main message behind it is that basically the writer is trying to convey who is the X, who is the Y, who is the Z generation. So it's important, grade 12, like I say, that you read. Okay? Very important. If you forget everything I'm going to say in this session, remember, you need to read. Okay? So we move on. Right. So I have just screenshotted the text of X, Y, or Z. Now let's just look at it. It just says X, Y, or Z with a question mark. Okay? So you can basically look at the title, ask yourself the question, where do I fit in? Okay? But remember, what you read, you cannot impose your thoughts on X, Y, or Z. Okay? Later on, with a higher order question, questions basically, the questions will ask you to provide your opinion on the text. Okay? Right. So when we look at the first paragraph, it starts off and says, one often hears about generations and the differences between one generation and another. That first line already indicates to you and me what the text is about. So I can understand why exactly a question mark is posed after the Z. Because we all have differing ideas. We all have questions about generations. We all have questions of how generations are different. But questions will be based on this text. And that is why it's important that you understand the title. And then when you read these paragraphs, that you also understand what is going on. Okay? We move on to the next slide. Now these are the question words that is used to set up the language questions, the comprehension questions. And this you can get on the DBE website, grade 12. This is basically the Mind the Gap document on paper 1. Okay, and these questions are used to formulate, the question words are used to formulate the questions. Now, because I said we're going to focus on the basics, these are just questions. This slide and the next one will focus on your level 1, 2, 3 questions. The basic easy questions where you derive your responses from the text. Okay, so if you look at the questions and you look, it tells us the first level says literal. So these are questions about information that is clearly given in the text or extract from the text. So these are questions which are in front of you that you can see. Those easy 1 mark, 2 mark questions, right? And it is important that you look at your mark allocation because that indicates to you what and how you need to respond. Okay, so we are quickly just going to look at them. The first one says name characters, places or things. I mean, really, grade 12? If that's the question, wouldn't that be in front of you? Because remember I said that the text would have an information. So this is to name. The next one says to state facts, reasons or ideas. So obviously, these are things in front of you. So if they ask, for example, state the facts, reasons or ideas. So they ask you to state exactly why there are different generations. You would get it from the text. Because that is how we understand the text would be written. Okay. The next one says give two reasons for or why. Identify the character, reasons, theme, etc. Describe the place, character, what happens when. Basic questions, but what is important are these. They tell you exactly what to do. My advice to you, download this document. Go through them. Understand them. Go through past question papers on comprehension. Read the questions. Read the text. And then you see the link. Look at those questions. Look at those basic questions and how you are to respond to those questions. Okay? So we move on to the next one, which would be your more level 2, 3 questions, right? Focus on the reorganization, and the other one focuses on inference questions. Here it focuses on the idea of summarizing certain points, main points or ideas, group the common elements, or give an outline of. So it means that we've just gone up a level, right? So if you think of summarizing ideas, you must understand also what is the main point. So when you read the comprehension to derive, this is the main point the writer is trying to convey. But when I'm told to summarize, the question would tell me, refer to paragraph 4. Summarize the idea the writer is trying to convey. Okay, so the focus would then be on paragraph 4, not the overall idea or the main idea that the writer is trying to convey. Next, we have the inference questions. Okay, it tells us here it's questions that need you to interpret. Very important. To interpret, make meaning of the text using information that may not be clearly stated. So you need to read so that you can interpret the extra, the additional information from it, right? It says, this process involves thinking about what happened in different parts of the text, looking for clues that tell you more about the character, theme, or symbol, and using your own knowledge to help you understand the text. So you need to infer, okay? And these types of questions asks us, they start with, explain how, compare the attitudes or actions. What do the words, right? The words that is used, or whether the writer makes use of dialogue, of what someone said, what do those words convey? Does it place emphasis? Why is it used? Okay. Then we look at how does character X react with, right? Because these questions, grade 12, you must understand when it speaks of characters here, it could also be that there's people are mentioned in it. But at the same time, these questions can be used for your paper 2 preparation. Because they use exactly the same questions, ideas around this to formulate the question paper. You need to prepare. That is what is important. So when you infer and you make meaning of the text, it means you need to think a little bit further. Because you need to read further into depth in what is being conveyed. Remember, level 1, level 2 is a bit easier. Because like it told us now, we understand that these are points, facts, stated for level 1, 2 questions, 1, 2 mark questions. Easy questions, facts in front of you. So you must understand, if the text says the X generation started in this year, and the question is posed to you in the exam, state when X generation started, it is in front of you. But to infer would be totally different, because it means you need to identify certain things. Is emphasis placed on certain things? That is what is important. Okay? So we move on and we look at the questions now. Right? So very important, we read analyze and understand the question. It is very important that you do that. Okay? Follow the question word or the question verb, and obviously we know a verb tells us we need to do. So what is the question asking you to do in the exam, right? And very important, answer in your own words. Do not quote from the text, because the instruction tells you to answer in your own words, which means you paraphrase. You don't have to now go and for every question you answer and you quote from the text. It is supposed to be in your own words if you read your instructions. Okay? So let us focus quickly on this question. And both questions here are focused on X, Y, or Z. Okay? So the first question asks, what do people who belong to the same generation have in common? State 2 points. Now, very important. The question is, what do people who belong to the same generation have in common? Where am I going to get that? From my text. But very important, I am told to state 2 points. So when I read and I go look for what the people have in common, I must go look for 2 points. And it tells me there are 2 points. I'm going to find those 2 points. But I need to read. And if I don't read, and I don't analyze, and I don't understand, I am not going to be able to respond to it. That is what is important here. Right? The next question is a very simple, easier question. It says, explain why the following statement is false. Right? It says here the traditionalists preferred working individually. But now it says, explain why the following statement is false. Sometimes the question is posed to you to quote from the text to prove that the statement is false. In this case, it is to explain why. How am I going to explain? Because I've read the text. Very important. Pay attention to this. Mark allocation. There's 2 marks. It asks for 2 points. You are going to state here, which means when you state actual facts, right? 1 mark. You just need to explain exactly why exactly this statement is false. That is what is important. So you see how important it is to read the question, analyze the question, and understand it before you respond. Don't go into the examination and you sit there and think, let me read and then I answer. Because we have the tendency of, I'm going to read paragraph 1 because the question says refer to paragraph 1. So those questions all under paragraph 1, I'm going to answer them now. Don't do that. Read the whole text. Read your questions and then you refer back to your text before you start answering your questions. And very important, you will see I underlined the verb. Besides the fact that this question is there, I underlined the verb. It said state 2 points. I underlined for you explain why. So look for what is the question word or the question verb. What is it that is required of you to do? Okay? Then, I've already explained there about the mark allocation. Answer very important in full sentences unless stated otherwise. If you are asked to quote, and in the FAL paper grade 12, the question is posed, quote, for example, quote 6 consecutive words. Right? Quote 6 consecutive words. Thus it means if it's 6 consecutive words, they follow one another. Correct? Which means when you quote these words, it's opening 1 quotation mark, your 6 words, and you close with another quotation mark. Right? Not 1 word with its own quotation marks. The next word with quotation marks. You are not following the instruction, and that is the problem. Okay? So, we move on. Like I said, we make use of the quotation marks, and we give the required or requested word count. If it says 6, we give 6. If it's 4, we give 4. But ensure it is the proper one. Okay. Now, here it says, like I've explained, quote 6 consecutive words from paragraph 10 that shows that Generation Z relies on technology. The important part here is exactly that. Quote. That is the instruction. That is the question word or verb or the instructional verb. Okay. Right. Now, that's based on the text you are given, right? And that mark for that whole text normally comes to 24 or 25 out of 30. But we also have text B, which is the visual image provided to you. Now we get total different images, grade 12. Okay? You need to understand that they are given differently. This is information. You can be given a bar graph, which is information with stats. Or you can be given a picture with your characters in the picture. And then there are certain elements you need to look at. Now if I look at this speaks to clothing, but it's information. It says there, fabric care language made easy. And we all have clothing. But we all don't understand this. We go into the store, we buy things and think, oh, we'll just go ahead. We'll wash this, we'll iron that, we'll home wash this. But we don't read what it actually says. Whether it must be washed in cold water, it must not be ironed, or whatever the case might be. Right? So it says, understand what your clothes are saying. Right? So we understand that there's a label on the inside of your clothing. Right? This says, if you know these symbols, the first one says, wash, bleach, tumble dry, iron, dry clean. And these codes, more dots means more heat. 1 dot, cool, low, that's for your ironing. Warm or medium, 2 dots. 3, hot or high. And then more bars, more gentle. Permanent press cycle, right, that has to do with the washing of the clothing, gentle or delicate cycle. And the X means do not. Now I'm certain, grade 12, when you go buy clothing, you wear them and you throw them in the wash. And you expect your mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, your guardian to wash your clothing. But you don't consider this. And then what happens? When the clothing is spoiled, who do we blame? The person that did the washing. But I tell you this image, this visual is information. That is what is important here. It is information. So automatically when you see your text B, you must try to decipher and make meaning of exactly what text B is. Why text B is posed. And obviously there are questions to these. And it would be easy, simple questions. But reading, once again, is important. Okay? Right. This is a total different one. Here we have characters. So here we would look at, there's no wording besides for the bottom part who speaks of moo and eek. But if you think in A, we find the gentleman eating. Okay? The lady, she doesn't understand. She's astonished. Why he's eating? In B, the gentleman messed on himself. And look at his facial expression. But very important, it tells us road trip. So they are on the road. They are driving. And the gentleman in screen B here looks down while he's driving. Automatically what results is he doesn't pay attention to the road and therefore does not see the cow and almost loses the control of the car. Right? But now very important, that means we looked at facial expression in this one. Very important, facial expression in A and B. He was happy that he was going to take that bite. But in screen B, or in frame B, it is totally different. Okay? But what we see at the bottom here was the cow, and we understand the moo. But that grade 12 is the sound we know, we associate with the cow. The eek comes from screeching of tires. So very important when we look here at the image, we look at the visuals, we look at facial expressions, we look at language, we look at what is the writer or the cartoonist trying to convey. Okay? So it's very important that you do this before you respond to the questions. Okay? Right. We move on to the summary. Summary, grade 12, can give you 10 out of 10. But you see, the same thing I said when I started was reading is extremely important. And the summary expects exactly the same thing. Now, these are basics I'm going to teach you now today on the summary. Okay? Now we understand, obviously, a summary means to summarize. But there are also certain instructions. Okay? So it says, read the instruction and identify. This is important. Identify what you need to do. Remember when I spoke about the comprehension? I spoke of identifying or understanding the question verb or the question word, instructional verb. Exactly the same thing here. What is it that you need to do? So when I read, it says, the success of an event depends on proper planning. Okay, fine. That's the topic. Understand what it's about. But it says, read the passage text C below and list 7 tips on how to plan an event successfully. Now, very important here. Let's stop here. The instruction says, read the passage. First step. Second step, it says, list 7 tips on how to plan an event successfully. Now, automatically, you are FAL candidates. Home language candidates would write this in a paragraph. The instruction says list. Why would you want to write this in a paragraph? All you need to do, number 1, number 7, list your 7 points. Okay? So it's important that I know. I need to look for my tips on how to plan an event successfully. So I'm not going to mention anything else. I'm going to look for those 7 tips on the how. That's what's important. Okay? To your further instructions, of course, it says that the summary must be written in point form. As simple as that. Number 2 says, list your 7 points in full sentences using no more than 70 words. Now, obviously, grade 12, if there's 7 points and I use 10 words, 7 times 10 is 70, right? Yes, I can still do math, whether I'm a language teacher or not, right? Number your sentences from 1 to 7, like I said, only 1 point per sentence. Don't mix them. Even if you identify 8, the instruction was 7. So don't mix the 2 to make 1. Okay? Right. Use your own words as far as possible. There's the instruction. Use your own words as far as possible. Which means you need to paraphrase. You need to put it into your own words. But importantly, we cannot lose the meaning of the sentence. That is what is important there. Listen to what I'm saying. In your own words, paraphrase, but you cannot lose the meaning of the sentence. Okay? Because if you are going to quote the 7 points, you lose out on a language mark, which could have given you 10 out of 10. But if you identify the correct 7 points, right, plus 3 marks given to you for language, 10 out of 10 grade 12. So it's important that you practice your summary skills. Okay? And then the last one says to indicate the total number of words you have used in brackets at the end of your summary. Now you tend to write short summaries and then you write 70 words. Apparently you think we can't see. Apparently you think the markers can't see at the end of the year. We can see when it's too little and when it's too many. So don't lie, right? Okay? These are the instructions you need to follow. Okay? So now let's read and underline. From the text I need to look at, and I must firstly identify 7 points. Key words. These are the steps I'm going to follow. It spoke about on how to plan a successful event. So I need to read the text and ask myself, that is paragraph 1. I'm going to read it. Is there a key point? Key point related to my instruction. And if I identify it, grade 12, then I can underline it. I've identified, there's my first one, underline, make a number 1, number 2, number 3, etc. Okay? And then plan the summary in your own words. Right? So you take it from here, you plan it in your own words. That becomes your rough draft. You need to manage your time in that paper. Right? And then obviously after you have your rough draft, write the summary in your own words, final draft. That is all you basically need to do. And then, very important, draw a line through your rough draft so that the marker knows this is the final draft of your summary. Now, I'm going to end off today by saying exactly what I said at the beginning. Reading is important, it is imperative. I cannot stress it enough. Your teacher cannot stress it enough. You need to read, you need to interpret, you need to analyze, you need to understand. They all sound the same. They are similar. But if you don't do exactly that, you are not going to be able to respond to the questions in the examination. You need to take your time, read, and read. While you are reading, formulate in your mind what the meaning is of the different texts I am reading. Formulate in your mind that when I'm done here, I need to understand what it's about. And then I can start answering questions on comprehension. After I've done that and I've moved on to question 2, I need to understand there are certain steps and I need to follow them, but at the same time follow the instruction. Read the text, underline like I just said, write a brilliant summary. Right? I wish you all of the best as you continue preparing towards this question paper, which equates to 80 marks. And you need to ensure that you get the marks at the end of this year. All of the best to you, grade 12. I thank you.